Today I'm joined by Mr. John Graham, PGA professional at Rochester, New York. How are you, John?
Good. How are you? Thanks.
Good, good. All right, John, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself personally?
Well, I'm the youngest of six kids from a big family, and pretty early on, our mother kind of got us involved in asking a lot of questions, being very intuitive, being very curious, a real strong desire to know why things work the way they work. And I played a lot of sports as a kid. I played golf for one summer, probably when I was 10. My mother's sister lived right by a golf course, and it was owned by the county, and you could sign up for a season pass for $4. So she would drop me off in the morning and pick me up after visiting her sister. And I used my dad's clubs, so the really big, heavy wooden ones at the time. And I really enjoyed it. Got fairly good as a 10-year-old. I broke 90 for the first time that first summer, and that fall, all of my elementary school friends got into a bowling league. I'm like, oh, I'll give that a try because now there's no golf. And that particular game for me at that time just fit my mind a little bit better than golf did. Like, bowling had a definable perfect score. If I do everything right, I can get the best score possible, and it's absolutely definite. No way anyone can say anything about it. And for me, that was a really powerful goal that I had, that I wanted to get good at this game. And I completely stopped playing golf. Didn't play golf. I bowled all through high school, bowled in college. Didn't really start playing golf again until after college, or at least between some of my college years. Once I figured out that bowling is just really unfair, so I said, the heck with this game. Yeah. and then went back to golf. And luckily I had a perfect game and had shot an 800 series. So all the goals that I had met. I bowled in nationals in college. Everything that I was looking to do, I had done. I had won some tournaments and things, but eventually, I started, at least in this part of the country, you bowl in the wintertime and you golf in the summertime, and all of my bowling friends got jobs at golf courses for the summer because all the bowling alleys shut down. So I'm like, well, I'll give this a try. I need something to do anyways. And right away I was rehooked again. I remember specifically one summer I was out playing. It was a beautiful 75-degree day, bright sun, no wind. And I had joined a summer bowling league that year. And I had to get off the golf course at like 3 o'clock. And then I went to the bowling alley to go do the summer league. And I walk into this place, and it's a real small little 16-laner, and there's smokes everywhere, and it's just dark. And I was like, oh, this is just the end of this. I'm done with this bowling thing. And I stopped bowling pretty much that year. And I haven't hardly bowled since, just doing the golf thing.
Wow, that's cool. Ironically, there is a correlation, or at least from my end, between bowling and golf. One of the guys I used to play with, his name was Lou Deluxe, and his son is actually on the PBA tour. This guy, he had a good.
Was it Tommy Deluxe?
Yes, his father, Lou,
Okay.
the late Lou Deluxe.
Uh-huh.
Lou Deluxe was always trying to hustle me.
Well, that's bowling way.
He was I think a low single digit player. We used to there was quite a few of these guys. They used to
Oh yeah.
get together and play. And also when I was with the company that I used to work with, was a golf company. They attempted to take the seasonality out of the business by parlaying and acquiring. I think they acquired 70 bowling alleys to try to winterize the business, and that didn't work either. I mean, you can't for whatever reason you can't. You either know one or the other.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And bowling's really declined significantly since I kind of got out of it. At least in this part of the country, all the bowling alleys I used to bowl at, probably half of them are gone. They're Home Depots or Lowe's or whatever. Just gone.
Exactly. There was one at the Port Authority here in New York City. Actually, some of the guys I play with in my men's club, a couple of them have rings for 300 games. So they stick to it, and they drill holes with different balls. We got.
Oh yeah. And then you get those guys together, it's just like the golf guys and the fishing guys. They've all got their best way to do it.
Exactly. All right. So what got you into teaching?
Well, when I got back into golf, I like any fairly young guy who starts golf, there's thought of, well, maybe I can play this game for a living. I get to be out outside, lots of money, all this travel, yada yada yada. And so I got in the golf business. I turned pro, and at the time, my wife to be got accepted to go to school at the University of Kentucky. So we moved down there, and I found a job at a golf course just south of Lexington. And that was really my first experience with the golf business and the teaching part. I used to work at a course, but just like a shop guy. It was not a big deal. He was a fairly young guy like myself and wanted to kind of get me into it. So I'm like, okay, great, I'll give it a shot. And he kind of showed me some things. And I was a self-taught golfer, never took a lesson until I had gotten to this job in Kentucky. So I was kind of trying to figure out how do I teach somebody based on the fact that I've never had a lesson. I don't even know what they look like. So it was quite an experience trying to teach somebody the way that I learned, which was pretty much just mimicking. I could see something and copy it pretty well, at least what I thought was pretty good, at least until I saw it on video for the first time. Trying to figure out, okay, well, that person looks like they know what they're doing. They're doing what I think they're doing. Let me see if I can get this person to look like that. And that's pretty much how I got started.
Okay. And you started in Kentucky.
Yep. Yeah, worked in Kentucky for a couple of years. After she graduated school, we moved back to New York. I spent a few winters down in Naples. But even at that time, I was still pretty much more trying to play and get good enough to do something serious with it. It's when I came back to New York after our first kids were born, this was about 8 years ago, that I really got involved in the teaching end. For whatever reason, I was just able to help people. I could figure out what was going on, at least what I thought was at the time, and at least get them hitting the ball better right away, even if it was not really knowing what I was doing at that particular time. I could just figure out something that would work.
Interesting. So
Definitely a line teacher, more like Brian was. I was just out there, and it's like, somebody comes by, can you help me? Oh, well, sure. Let me see what I can come up with.
okay, so let's talk a little bit about your progression as an instructor.
So after I was back in New York for a few years, there was this one girl who was from our hometown, who's currently playing at LSU, and she was head and shoulders, better than all the girls around. And she had just lost her teacher that she had, and her dad asked her club builder guy, do you recommend anybody to take on this little 12-year-old girl just to kind of help her along? And this particular guy recommended me. He was a member at the club that I was working at, and he saw how I worked with kids and how I worked with females, and just thought it would be a really good fit. So I started working with this girl, and because she was so good for our area, that was the first big, well, this guy must kind of know what he's doing, because this girl went to this guy that nobody even knows of. And because she continued to get better and get better statewide and then regional wide and then national wide, things just kind of snowballed from there. But even at that time, I was pretty much doing it by sight and by flight. I hadn't done a lot of the research, at least internet-wise, that I started probably after that. And it was just, well, they look like they're doing this, and you don't look like you're doing that, and they're hitting it farther than you. So let's see if we can make you do that and make you hit farther than that. I worked mostly on, at that time, I like swing to look relaxed and go really fast and be free. That was my big thing when I started, that I wanted it to look like they weren't doing very much, but the club would go fast and the ball would go far. And if I could get that look out of them, regardless of all the other pieces, and they could go find it, and that was good enough for me.
Great.
And then after that, so I'm sorry. So then after that, I started coaching a college team. The course that I was at, the head pro left, and me and the other assistant that were there both applied for that job, and he got the job and I didn't. But at the time, he was coaching this community college team, and I asked him, if since you got the head pro job, would you mind going to the AD and recommending me for the coaching job, because it was right at the same course. I'd already known some of the players. And so then he went and asked, we all met with the AD, and I started coaching the college team, and that was, a great start into that. And then a couple of years after that, I was really full blown into teaching. I didn't want to sell shirts. I didn't want to say, you go next. I didn't want to, answer the phone. I didn't want to do any of the political parts of the club thing. I just wasn't that good at. I had too much problem voicing my opinion and answering truthfully. So I eventually, that whole political breakdown took place, and I ended up as teacher at the course that I grew up at as their director of instruction, and then I've been going full bore teaching since then. That was 6 years ago, I think.
Well, things happen.
There's a dome left. There used to be two. It was when it first opened up, it was a golden bear.
That's
Yeah, that one's gone. Yeah, it's funny. The people in our area are hardcore golf addicts, but only from February to September. As soon as football starts, it's over. I mean, there's only 5% of the real hardcore guys that'll do it in the fall. As soon as the football starts going, they know the snow's coming, they know the golf's going to end, and they just stop early and go bowl.
So I imagine that given that you told us a little bit about yourself at a young age, that your knack for inquiry led you to another level of research within golfing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. Because of obviously the area that I'm at, I have a lot of time at home. The kids had already been born. We had already discussed that I would stay home. So now I'm home and I got a computer in front of me and I put it to work. I, I, I get on it and I start digging and digging and digging and as soon as you get into it, there's certain places that everybody kind of winds up, depending on how hardcore they go searching. You can't not find GolfWorks. You can't not find Brian. You can't not find the Golf Machine. You can't not find, at least at one time, Richie Three Jack, Richie Hunt. There's just certain people that you're gonna run into, or certain names, or certain whatevers. David Orr, I teach. There's probably 50 guys or 100 at the most, and they're all everywhere. Eventually you just notice, okay, well, if I go to this one, I see these guys, but I'm only allowed to say this. If I go to this one, I see the same guys, but I can only say this. You kind of figure out your way around and see what you can and can't do, but you're still talking to the same 40 or 50 people.
Right. That's great because you do. There is I like your approach to surfing. It's enough. It's a good way to access a lot of the different methodologies and a lot of different thoughts out there, and kind of come up with something I really like the way you go about it. Now, how did you get into the deep way?
Well, when I really started to get into at least researching the swing, I went to the bookstore and I just bought every science book that had golf in the title and either physics in the title or Newton on the tee or anything that had science and golf combined in the book. Went and bought all of them. So, I had read Jorgensen's book, not too long after I got into it, which was probably, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And at least for me, when I went through the PGA, I remember getting into heated arguments with the people there that, there's no way the path controls where the ball starts. And this is before I had read Jorgensen's book. It's like, I can hit the ball. I can see it. Like, no. It's definitely the path. It's definitely the path. And I'm like, okay, well, they're the PGA. I'm John Graham. Well, they must be right. And then after I read this book, I'm like, I knew it. I was right all along. But so, once I started to go around, it was really, at Brian's site was the first place that like, wow, these guys have really gotten into it, even deeper than I've gotten into it. So I got into it definitely more from watching and listening and reading Brian's stuff than anyone else. There wasn't anybody else talking about it at that time, a few years ago.
Okay. Now, is that part of your teaching paradigm? Is that what are your current teaching philosophy? How would you describe it?
I like to teach the why of things. Not everybody wants to hear the why. I prefer to teach it if they'll listen to it. So I have no problem telling a beginner, what causes this, this causes this, this causes this, this causes this. And there's only, a few things that have direct related, if this happens, then this will happen. Everything else is interpretable. Like, well, it's likely that this could happen. I want to make sure I give them if this happened, then this caused it. So I give them all that stuff as much as they can, and as much as they can handle. I don't go into the numbers of, if your VSP is 63 degrees and your angle of attack is, 4 degrees down, it's going to adjust your HSP by 2 degrees. I don't get into that until they want it. And very few people need to know that. But you just tell them, well, obviously if I'm hitting the ball before I get to the bottom, at least relative to the ball, the club's still going to the right. And that's all they really need to know as far as I'm concerned. And the ball is going to start pretty close to where the face is, assuming you hit it in the middle. But I work mainly off of how I like the swing to see in terms of the speed and the ease and the amount of effort it takes, and then what the ball's doing.
What about putting? I see you're wearing an AimPoint shirt. I'm not
Oh yeah.
sure what it is, but could you go into that?
Well, the AimPoint is a green reading system. It was developed by a guy named Mark Sweeney just a couple years ago. If you watch Golf on the Golf Channel, he's the guy who developed the software that draws the line on the green, and if they aim here and they hit at the right speed, it'll roll on the line and go in. And I got involved with Mark a little over a year ago, shortly after he started really going around starting teaching it. And it's just it's just a way to answer the question of, well, okay, we probably got to get a decent idea which way it's going to go. How much is it going to go? And our job is to tell them and teach them how much. It doesn't involve, if you broke the putting into four pieces, is obviously I've got to hit it the right distance or right speed. I've got to aim it in the right place. I don't really have to, but at least I've got to start it in the right place. And I've got to know where that place is. And AimPoint is pretty much telling them this is where you should aim it, assuming you're going to hit it with speed, assuming the green is a certain slope and a certain speed. And we'll tell you exactly how much it's going to break.
Okay, so it doesn't incorporate any kind of putting mechanics.
No, got nothing to do with mechanics. This is all just, this is where you aim because your ball's here and the green is in the shape.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty much done with the questions. You have anything you'd like to add?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, if for the people that know me that at least are doing the internet stuff, hopefully that they're comfortable with the idea. They probably see me in a lot of places, and they see me argue with everybody, and then they see me agree with everybody. I tend to try and just find out what the answers are. I ask a lot of questions. Like I said at the very beginning, that my mother was, kind of brought us into the question asking thing, and not a lot of people like that. So it's been difficult trying to figure out how to learn the way that I need to learn for me without challenging and upsetting everybody by asking them, well, why is that? What about this? Or what about this? So it's definitely a tightrope to walk, trying to figure out how to phrase the questions that I'm trying to get involved in. Some people will say, I'm a passive aggressive. Well, if you already know the answer, why are you asking a question? Like, well, maybe your answer is better than my answer, and I need to find out. If you can back it up and I can't, well, then you win. That's fine. I have no problem losing, but I'm going to ask until I find out if your information is better than mine. Because I want to find out all the information if I can. So hopefully people that have run into me have at least thought that I was fair in that regard. I ask a lot of questions. I like to learn. I like to challenge a lot of people, and I love it when they challenge back. So hopefully at least I come across as fair and not, with the internet thing, there's a whole lot of, well, this guy's in this camp, and this guy's in that camp, and this guy's in that camp. It's really interesting how the internet instruction thing is really, really broken down into a lot of pieces, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's definitely become, I don't want to say political is the right word, but it's definitely become cliquey. These people
Fragmented, yeah.
Right. These people want to talk about just what they want to talk about, and they don't want to have anybody come and challenge it. This is just what we do. And then this group wants to do the same thing, but it's different information than the ones that they have. So trying to get the information from this group and from this group from the same, being not involved in either of the groups is a real challenge. Because, if there's anything that I've learned, all of these either systems or methods or whatever you want to call them, once you get down to the really, really deep stuff, that's the stuff that you really want to know. Those are where the real nuggets are. And funnily enough, they kind of all end up at about the same place, and they don't really know it because they don't talk to each other. But I don't really think there's really that many systems, true methods that are out there. Everybody says they're part of a group, but I think they've all got the same basic true goals in mind. They're trying to get, an impact that's good, a ball flight that's good, trying to get contact that's consistent. Everything else is, I think this way is better than this way, or that.
Negotiable. Sure.
It's negotiable, right? So it's it's interesting trying to kind of walk through that world of being on one saying and saying, okay, well, I agree with that, I like that, and then going to a place that believes that everything that this group says is wrong, and then I could say, oh, I agree and I believe with that. And it's like, well, how can you agree with this if you agree with that? It's like, well, that makes sense, and what you said makes sense, and it doesn't really matter where it came from if you can back it up with some good information and some good conversation. I'm more than happy to believe it. But you're going to have to bring something behind it to back it up, because I'm going to ask you about it, and challenge you, and then when, because like I'll be at one thing, and one day I'll say, yeah, okay, I like this, and then the next day, well, well, what about this? Can you explain this to me? And so sometimes, it's, when people are dealing with me, it's like, well, I don't understand where you're coming from. Next day you thought we knew what we were talking about. The next day you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense to me. So I think, I definitely at least rub some people the wrong way because of the way that I come across, and I'm trying to figure out how to kind of deal with that as I go through this. But I haven't been doing nearly as much foruming as lately. There's a guy that I met right when I first got into the internet. His name is James Ridyard. He's from England, and he's part of a group, as a lot of people will label him. But he's a really, really smart, very similar-minded person to myself. He does a lot of research on his own. Uh, he checks facts. He's got a degree in biomechanics, which I don't have any real information on. But he's very willing to share and very open. So I talk with him a lot. I know you ran into me on Twitter the other day. I'm a massive social media addict. I Facebook and tweet a lot. And in fact, the group that, like, there's a group of probably 20 pros that are on Twitter daily, and we share massive amounts of information with each other. If there's pros out there looking to get some good info, though, I would definitely get a Dropbox, which is it's a free kind of service that we use to share really large files. And we kind of get everything together and say, okay, who's got information on long-term athletic development, and all those guys will get their stuff together and they'll put it in a place where we can all go look at it. Who's got information on periodization, or who's got information on AimPoint, or who's got information on Mangum, or who's got information on whatever. Because we're all scattered all over the world, we're going to have different influences from different areas. Like a lot of the European guys will have a lot of Vision 54 stuff, which I don't really know very much about, but I can go learn from them from that. And very few people in Europe know much about AimPoint, so they can ask me about that. It's a much more, at least for this particular group, it's a much more open community, and the forums tend to be much more closed. So it's a different set of requirements, if you will. It's much easier to be the way that I am in that environment, because everybody's looking to do the same kind of thing I'm doing. The forums tend to be more echo chambers, where they want to hear what they want to hear over and over and over again. And someone comes in and says, "Well, I don't believe that. You're a jerk. Get out of here." Where in the Twitter world, there's nowhere to do that. You can't ban anybody. You can't take their stuff away. You can't. There's just nowhere to hide. It's the true market of information, at least for what I use it for. So I spend more of my time there than anywhere else.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the social media and the internet has just changed the way we do everything. It just makes the world that much smaller.
Oh yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
something that you would point out the model that you guys are using on with this Twitter interaction type of thing. We tried to I think it was Billy McKinney who said that my blog would be the TED Talks of golf. And originally I started doing a lot of golfing machine stuff because I had a lot of influence in the golfing machine. I was influenced by the golfing machine.
Well,
And I realized that there's just a lot more out there that needs to be looked at critically. I've been inviting anybody who's willing to talk about the Bertholli method, which is Vision 54.
okay, yeah.
Oh no, Forum 54 guys.
Okay, yeah.
When playing guys, whatever. I don't.
Right.
Let's listen to what they have to say. And, apparently some of this thing, whatever it is, it's working for these particular.
It's absolutely
working.
Yeah.
And try to keep an open mind to everything.
Absolutely. I mean, there's obviously success in everything that's being done, because people are playing for money and they're making millions of dollars doing it. So to say it doesn't work or you can't do, I mean, it's just folly as far as I'm concerned. Just you got to get it in the hole and the least amount of shots as possible, regardless of how you hit it that day. It's I try not to take all that very serious. It's just let's go play golf and knock it in the hole at some point.
It's just a number when you come down to it. If somebody wanted to reach out to you and perhaps inquire about lessons or stuff like that, where would they go?
Well, they can go to my website. It's johngrahamgolf.com. They can find me on Twitter, John Graham Golf. John Graham Golf will pretty much be any way to find me. If you Google it, if you go to Twitter, if you go to Facebook, and just type in Facebook John Graham Golf or Twitter John Graham Golf, I'm gonna show up. And if people use Google, they can learn anything. They can type in anything they want, and definitely learning how to Google is maybe a skill that should be taught. But if you know how to Google, you can learn anything. I mean, I spend most of my time looking, like now I'm doing information like how do I code my Facebook page so that I can make it look a certain way. Just like I said, I have maybe a little too much time on my hands, and I go down these tangents, and one day I'm trying to figure out the trigonometry between a 30-degree angle if I walk steps on a green, and the next day I'm trying to figure out how to code a Facebook page. And then the next day, I'm trying to figure out how to create a wiki land. It's just, I get going down these roads, and sometimes I finish them, and other times I get stuck. But
that's the new school. I think that's the new school golf professional. I think that's the way it's going to be. The fact that guys in the winter would, I don't know what the pros of the place I ran would do in the winter time, but it certainly wasn't anything golf related. Trying to stay on top of your profession during the winter season with the advent of Google and stuff like that. I mean, there's no reason to go to a library. You don't need a library.
Don't need a library, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It made that library obsolete.
Yeah.
Another thing I pointed out to a couple of the other guys I've talked to is that with the internet now and this media, but we're not constrained to a lot of the print media, a lot of the television or radio, where sometimes they can spoon feed the public whatever they want as to who's what and who's the top. For example, this top 100 list, it's really got my goat. I don't want to get too deep into that because I might step on some toes, but here's the point. If I go on any one of these forums and I ask for feedback on any particular golf instructor, any particular piece of equipment, okay, or any particular anything, okay, I'm going to get several opinions, if I look hard enough.
Oh, yeah.
And for the most part, they're going to be unbiased opinions with no agenda. I mean, there might be the occasional guy that has an axe to grind for whatever reason. For the most part, I think these types of the assessment is going to be put back into the hands of the public where it belongs.
Right.
Not in the hands of some print media that has, beholden to whatever.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the beauty of all this thing. There's going to be with the free flow of information, there's going to be much more honest opinions about what really is going on.
Absolutely. And the real trick is going to be learning how to filter all the information that's out there. Because there's as much as there's good information out there, there was some really bad stuff. And being open-minded enough to be able to say, okay, I like this and I like this, even though they're supposed to be opposite. Trying to stay out of the groups of things and just assess the information. Not make it personal. Not make it clan-driven. Just, okay, here's the information. You make your choice as to whether or not you think it's going to help you, whether or not it's valid, whether or not this particular person did what they should, their due diligence to figure out that the information they're given is accurate. All of that stuff is a real trick to the user to figure out, because they can just get snowballed right off the bat with just information up the yin yang trying to. It's just crazy. So it's I wish people the best of luck if they can and they're gonna have to put some time in. There's just no way around that. If you want good information, you're gonna have to put your time in, either talking to people, reading a lot, searching a lot. Because exactly right. Because there's gonna be, just like you see in the magazine, there's gonna be different views that are almost polar opposite of each other, trying to get you to do the exact same thing. And you've got to figure out if none of them work, one of them works, or they both work. And that's the real trick of dealing with the internet, is trying to really break it down into what's really useful and what's real not.
Okay. All right, John. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I really enjoyed learning about you and learning.
No, thanks. I really enjoyed being on. That was great.
We look forward to hearing from you in the future.